1 Kings chapter 20. And Benhadad, the king of Aram, gathered all his host together, and there were 32 kings with him, and the horses and the chariots. And he went up and besieged Shomron, and fought against it. And he sent messengers to Ahab, king of Israel, into the city, and said to him, Thus saith Benhadad, Thy silver and thy gold is mine, thy women also, and thy children, even the goodliest are mine. And the king of Israel answered and said, It is according to thy saying, my lord, O king. I am thine, and all that I have. And the messengers came again and said, Thus speaketh Benhadad, saying, I sent indeed to thee, saying, Thou shalt deliver me thy silver and thy gold and thy women and thy children. But I will send my servants to thee tomorrow about this time, and they shall search thy house and the houses of thy servants, and it shall be that whatsoever is pleasant in thy eyes, they shall put it in their hand and take it away. Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land, and said, Mark, I pray you, and see how this man seeketh mischief. For he sent to me for my women, and for my children, and for my silver, and for my gold, and I denied him not. And all the elders and all the people said to him, Hearken thou not, neither consent. For what reason he said to the messengers of Benhadad, Tell my lord the king, all that thou didst send for to thy servant at the first, I will do, but this thing I may not do. And the messengers departed and brought him word again. And Benhadad sent to him and said, The gods do so to me, and more also, if the dust of Shomron shall suffice for handfuls for all the people that follow me. And the king of Israel answered and said, Tell him, let not him that girdeth on his armor boast himself as he that putteth it off. And it was when Benhadad heard this message, as he was drinking, he and the kings, in the pavilions, that he said to his servants, Set yourselves in array. And they set themselves in array against the city. And behold, a prophet came near to Ahab, king of Israel, and said, Thus saith Yahweh, Hast thou seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver it into thy hand this day, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. And Ahab said, By whom? And he said, Thus saith Yahweh, By the young men of the princes of the provinces. Then he said, Who shall begin the battle? And he answered, Thou. Then he mustered the young men of the princes of the provinces, and they were 232. And after them he mustered all the people, even all the children of Israel, being 7,000. And they went out at noon. But Benhadad was drinking himself drunk in the pavilions, he and the kings, the 32 kings that helped him. And the young men of the princes of the provinces went out first, and Benhadad sent out, and they told him, saying, There are men come out from Shomron. And he said, Whether they are come out for peace, take them alive, or whether they are come out for war, alive take them. So these went out of the city, the young men of the princes of the provinces, and the army which followed them. And they slew every one his man, and the Aramim fled, and Israel pursued them, and Benhadad, king of Aram, escaped on a horse with horsemen. And the king of Israel went out, and smote the horses and chariots, and slew the Aramim with a great slaughter. And the prophet came near to the king of Israel and said to him, Go, strengthen thyself, and mark, and see what thou doest. For at the return of the year the king of Aram will come up against thee. And the servants of the king of Aram said to him, Their God is a God of the hills, therefore they were stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. And do this thing, take the kings away, every man out of his place, and put captains in their place, and number thee an army, like the army that thou hast lost, horse for horse, and chariot for chariot, and we will fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. And he hearkened to their voice, and did so. And it was at the return of the year that Benhadad mustered the Aramim, and went up to Aphek to fight against Yisrael. And the children of Yisrael were mustered, and were victualled, and went against them. And the children of Yisrael encamped before them, like two little flocks of goatlings. But the Aramim filled the country. And a man of God came near and spoke to the king of Yisrael, and said, Thus saith Yahweh, because the Aramim have said, Yahweh is a God of the hills, but he is not a God of the valleys. Therefore will I deliver all this great multitude into thy hand, and ye shall know that I am Yahweh. And they encamped one over against the other 7 days. And so it was, that in the 7th day the battle was joined, and the children of Yisrael slew of the Aramim 100,000 footmen in 1 day. But the rest fled to Aphek into the city, and the wall fell upon 27,000 men that were left. And Benhadad fled, and came into the city, into an inner chamber. And his servants said to him, Behold now, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Let us, we pray thee, put sackcloth on our loins, and ropes upon our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will let thy soul live. So they girded sackcloth on their loins, and put ropes on their heads, and came to the king of Israel, and said, Thy servant Benhadad saith, I pray thee, let me live. And he said, Is he yet alive? He is my brother. Now the men observed diligently, and hasted to catch whether it were his mind. And they said, Thy brother Benhadad. Then he said, Go ye, bring him. Then Benhadad came forth to him, and he caused him to come up into the chariot. And Benhadad said to him, The cities which my father took from thy father I will restore, and thou shalt make streets for thee in Damascus, as my father made in Shomron. And I, said Achab, will let thee go with this covenant. So he made a covenant with him, and let him go. And a certain man of the sons of the prophets said to his fellow by the word of Yahweh, Smite me, I pray thee. And the man refused to smite him. Then said he to him, Because thou hast not obeyed the voice of Yahweh, behold, as soon as thou art departed from me, a lion shall slay thee. And as soon as he was departed from him, a lion found him, and slew him. Then he found another man, and said, Smite me, I pray thee. And the man smote him, smiting and wounding him. So the prophet departed, and waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with his headband over his eyes. And as the king passed by, he cried to the king, and he said, Thy servant went out into the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside, and brought a man to me, and said, Keep this man. If by any means he be missing, then shall thy soul be for his soul, or else thou shalt pay a talent of silver. And as thy servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said to him, So shall thy judgment be. Thyself hast decided it. And he hasted, and took the headband away from his eyes. And the king of Israel discerned him, that he was of the prophets. And he said to him, Thus saith Yahweh, because thou hast let go out of thy hand the man whom I had devoted to destruction, therefore thy soul shall go for his soul, and thy people for his people. And the king of Israel went to his house heavy and displeased, and came to Shomron.